Hello, everyone. Welcome to PENSA Connects. My name is Eunice Tremin, and I will be your host for this evening. Wherever you are tuning from, thanks for joining in. As you see this program going on, I invite you to share the link, repost, tell your friends and your family to join. We really have an amazing discussion planned for today's session. So the purpose of PENSA Connect is to present a weekly program that connects students and professionals from all areas of the world and to share knowledge throughout this generation. We hope to be a blessing to you and we hope to learn and grow with one another. So before we begin our panel discussion, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Janet from Ohio, we have Grace from Atlanta, and we have Martha from Ohio. I'd like each panelist to just go around, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your education, something interesting about yourself. So we can begin with Martha and then work our way down.
Okay. Well, my name is Martha. I'm with Ohio Region. I went to a small PWI. It's like a small private university here in Westerville, Ohio. About 2,000 students. I studied human biology, hoping to pursue further education in the upcoming years. Is there anything else you'd like to know?
That's good. Thank you. Cool. Thank you, Martha.
So my name is Grace, and I'm from North Carolina. I go to NC State University, and that's a really huge PWI, so close to 33 to 36,000 students probably. We're the biggest in the nation, not in the nation, in the state, I believe. I study business administration with a marketing concentration, and post-graduation, which is in like a week, I should be, it's contingent. I don't really want to talk about it because I don't know what's going to happen to the world. So I'm going to just leave that right there.
And Dr. Janet?
Oh, hi, everyone. I am Dr. Janet Aintree. I'm currently a chemistry professor at Ohio Dominican University, which is a small liberal arts Catholic school. So it's very small with a population of about 2,500. And I went to Ohio State to get my PhD, and I've since been a chemistry professor since 2017. I teach all things chemistry, biochem, gen chem. Organic chemistry is actually my main class that I teach. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, guys. So we have gathered all the panelists today because in some way or another, they are involved with academia. They are currently in the midst of this new season of academics that we see occurring throughout the world, not just in the States, but throughout the world. Everyone is trying to adjust to this new reality with COVID-19, where universities, students, professors have had to adapt. And we want to have these panelists tell us about their perspective, what's going on, what have they seen that has changed, and how are they handling it. So we're going to begin with our first question for today. And just tell us about what you've seen happening. How has your experience been like since COVID-19 has occurred? So we can, how about Martha, you start us off, tell us about the student perspective, and then we can go on with Grace and Dr. Janet, please jump in.
Yeah, as someone who lived on campus all 4 years, it's definitely a shift. It's an uncomfortable shift for me personally, and I can attest for all the other students who lived on campus as well. It's different. It's something we have to get used to, something we have to adjust. And I think if COVID-19 continues to be around up until like fall semester, it's going to be an issue for many students who need to be in the educational setting, like campus, to do well, to concentrate, to thrive off the student energy. So I definitely think it's different. It's an uncomfortable shift for students, in my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what has primarily happened, kind of like just exactly like what you just said, students have been forced, we've all been forced to move to an online format. And for some people, it's working great, whereas for some people, it's not working great. And I think it could depend greatly on like what level of education you're at. For example, if you're a college student and you're used to a couple online classes here and there, then maybe the shift wasn't so bad. But if you're a high schooler or maybe even a middle school or elementary school and you're used to going to class every day, you had a structured schedule that was given to you, you had no say in what's like your academic um, journey, I guess. And now you're stuck in the house with a computer screen and you're trying to figure out, okay, so now what? So I think the online format is kind of like the biggest caveat to this whole thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I guess from a professor's point of view, it's been a really, I would say, interesting time. And the shift for me and a lot of, I guess, our science faculty, we're used to a lot of face-to-face, especially when we do like lab. You want it to be done face so that people can try hands on the experiment. However, we can't do that now because
Mm-hmm.
so it's been really, really difficult. And to say that this has been fun for us, I'll be lying. It's been very difficult. We've been figuring it out on the go. We're basically just going and figuring it out as we go because we didn't have enough time to plan the switch. We were
Mm-hmm.
home for spring break and then we were told don't come back. And so literally we had a week to turn around and take something that's face to face to something that's online. And
Mm-hmm.
so while we were able to do some things like lab, our students couldn't get to do some of the experiments physically.
Mm-hmm.
However, we had ways that we tried to work around the circumstance. But
Mm-hmm.
overall, I mean, it's been a learning experience
Mm-hmm.
for us.
So all three of you have brought up that the shift to the online platform has been kind of difficult. It hasn't been smooth sailing. Can you guys identify certain things that have been difficult within like the online platform experience? Anyone could jump in.
So I can go first since I was just talking about it. The most difficult thing to say was figuring out the technology for teaching online. For me, I've never taken an online class as a student. So every class I've ever taken, my undergrad and my graduate school PhD was done face to face. So I personally had no experience with online learning. Um, and so figuring out the technology, the great news is for my campus, we have, an online platform that we already use. It's kind of like Blackboard. Ours is called PENSA Learn. So with that platform, it has a virtual classroom link attached. And so we can go to a virtual classroom, literally log on and be in a classroom at the same time. So we didn't have to use Zoom or WebEx or any of those. We had our Panther Learn, which is like, some people call it Blackboard. We go there and that's it. So it's difficult not seeing my students face to face. You can be teaching and nobody's looking at your face, so you don't know if they're learning or just
Mm-hmm.
falling asleep behind the camera. You have no idea who you're talking to because some students will never turn on their camera. So you're basically talking to a screen and you have no idea who's engaging or who's not. And so you pretty much just lecture and go,
Mm-hmm.
which was difficult. Yeah.
I think for me personally, one thing that made the shift really, really hard was having to learn everything by myself. As a science major, like I do understand I have to read the textbook prior to going to class, which is amazing. The professors want you to be familiar with the content before you get to class, but there are certain things that you can't grasp as easily when you're studying by yourself. It's for me personally, well, for me it's just really hard. So studying the content, at least like having a knowledge of the content and going to class, the professor is going to explain into detail, put into perspective how you should see a science major. So that was hard because like for most of my classes we didn't have virtual classes at all. It was basically a whole bunch of assignments and assignments and assignments, which I didn't mind, but I also wanted to learn. And I feel like given assignments is not a way to learn for me. I want you to be able to explain it. Give me your perspective as someone who's in the sciences, as opposed to just giving me assignments. What is the exact or what is this? And just having me to basically Google or write exactly what's in the textbook for you to grade. I'm not learning that way. So just having to learn everything by myself, that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
That was hard.
And Grace?
I think I'm almost in like exactly the same boat as what you just said with how I'm really not learning. Like I'm a great student, GPA is great, like I'm smart and all of that. However, like when I'm doing my assignments from my bed and my teacher tells me I have an exam and I know Google is literally one tab away from me getting 100, like I'm gonna look up like even if I know it, I'm gonna still look it up. So like, yeah, I can tell that I'm not being the best student that I can be, but I'm doing it from my bed, so I don't really know. I don't know how great of a student I can be right now. So yeah, I would say the motivation to really try hard has diminished because the answers are right at the tip of our fingertips.
And so before I ask the follow-up question to what you just said, those who are watching and those who are tuning in, if you do have questions for our panelists throughout the show, please write your questions in the comment section on Facebook. And if you have questions, I'll see them and I'll ask our panelists. So keep that in mind, those who are watching. So one thing I'd like to touch on was, you guys have all kind of mentioned quality. Do you think the quality of your education has changed, has diminished because it's online? And if so, how much? How much has diminished?
I want to hear from a student perspective. You guys go.
Yeah, you tell us. Tell us. You guys are the ones sitting in class. So has it changed, like, the quality of your education?
Certainly. Yes, certainly. I don't know. I thrive off energy. So being on campus was really, really good for me because first, it gave me the motivation. Second, it gave me different perspective from different students. So I may have a perspective about something, but then I'll talk to a friend and they'll give me an entirely different perspective about the same thing. So learning from my peers, I saw that as quality education because like when you go out there into the real world, it's not just going to be your perspective. You're going to hear from different people from different backgrounds with different sets of values. So I just saw that as like taking my education into my own hands and also benefiting from my peers. I saw that as quality, but now my perspective is the only one I know. I've become like narrow-minded because like what I know is what I know and what I know is what is right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a yes and a no. I think in terms of the quality of the education in itself, I think that's remained pretty much consistent because the syllabus and the material is still consistent. But I would say yes, it may have like decreased a little bit because of the lack of resources. For example, if I'm in like a predictive analytics class or something and I need a certain software to do the assignment, and I don't have access to the software because now the computer labs are closed and I can't go to my office, my professor's office hours and stuff. Now I'm just like winging it. I'm just doing whatever, or I'm just texting my friend and we're working on it together or whatever. So I think the extraction of the value of the education has decreased.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I, for me, I tried to keep the quality the same. So I gave lectures. I still gave lectures. So one of my classes, I did synchronous. So the same time they would tune in. It was from 10 to about 11. So it would be online and they can ask questions. So that class worked out beautiful. Not, I would say, from my perspective, nothing really changed because I would go through slide and talk about it like I would face to face. But with my other class, I had an 8 a.m. class face to face. And of course, and it's a freshman class. Nobody wants to wake up at 8.
Yeah.
So I did a poll and I said, should we do a synchronous? Everybody said no.
No.
We don't want to be online. I said, listen, I don't want to be online at 8 either. So what I did for that class was I would record the videos alone and post it. So it would be like a YouTube video. There's an app you can use to record like a YouTube video and talk about the slides. And so I would record it on my own and post it and give assignments, and they would turn them in periodically. So for that class, I didn't really enjoy that because I couldn't tell who. I mean, I can see we have an online platform that I can see who has watched the video and all of that. I'm hardcore, so I would check. So I would follow up and make sure that they're watching the videos and all of that. But it's not this because while you're watching, if you have a question, who do you ask? And so I wouldn't know because in class when I'm unclear, somebody would say, "Hey, can you answer this?" But when I record a video and I post it, I don't know if they have questions. I always say at the end of the video, email me if you have questions. No one emails me. And so that was hard. And for me, I try to maintain the quality. But that's what I said. I want to hear from the students. I don't know if that was, I can't tell. It's hard to tell. But I went through all the syllabus, stick with the schedule, did all the quizzes, did all the exams, everything as scheduled. But I don't know.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Jen, is that this face-to-face interaction has really altered the way you teach because you need feedback to adjust how you teach.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I'm teaching chemistry, right? Chemistry has a notorious reputation.
Yeah.
And a lot of my students are not chem majors. So usually I will get the feedback, when you're teaching and you know that it's kind of not being received, you can tell. And then maybe you can explain it using like a different way. There's 3 ways to explain something. But with it being online, I only explain it one way. If you get praise God, if you know, hallelujah. I don't know. I can't. So it was hard for me that way. I wasn't getting feedback.
Okay. So we do have a question from the audience. I'm going to read it out loud and you guys can respond. So it is from Nana Domfe. And Nana is saying, hasn't COVID-19 revealed the lack of discipline by most of us to focus on what we do without any pressure from physical presence, either the classroom or professors around, or even peers challenging us? Do you guys understand the question?
Can you repeat the first part?
Yes. Hasn't COVID-19 revealed the lack of discipline by most of us to focus on what we do without any pressure from physical presence from either the classroom or professors been around or even peers challenging us?
I don't know if lack of discipline sounds almost like it has like a negative connotation, like
Yeah,
you
I was thinking
choosing
that
to
as
be
well.
lazy. I think it's more lack of motivation due to the abrupt change in the format of the education. So maybe I think we should I don't think students should be attributing their lack of motivation to themselves, kind of like blaming themselves for not being disciplined or whatever, because the outside stimuli has changed a lot. So
Yes.
I have a different perspective, obviously. I, obviously, from my point of view, I agree with the comment. I know it's a question, but I agree with the statement because I feel like you should be, self-motivated, like you said. We're there to support, I mean, do our part and go through the material, but a good student always personalizes the info. And even right now, the response and the feedback from activity, listen, it's the students who get A's that are still like submitting things on time and acting the same way as they would if you were face to face. Like if you forget to post an assignment, is that A student that would email you and say, Dr. J, we're late. Are we gonna have this homework posted by this time? So they're keeping me on top of my feet because they are self-motivated. And so from us, we're expecting every student to be, we understand the change, but for me, the faculty is working, the professors are still working, they're still posting things. So it's a two-way street. We expect that the students will respond the same way. And given the situation, yes, we're aware, but life goes on. So we expected a lot more, I guess, initiative from the students. But you were right, it did go down a lot. It did go down a lot. And that was kind of disappointing for us because we were expecting that, hey, we're all going to adjust to the new system. And I felt like, wow, while some of us were still going and posting assignments and turning things around and making YouTube videos, some students didn't even bother to watch it. And I'm like, okay, but it's your education, so I don't understand.
Yeah.
I understand the teachers, but I don't understand the attitude.
I think I personally don't agree with the choice of words the person used. I wouldn't say lack of discipline because I feel like everyone comes from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
everyone has different sets of values and you never know what someone is going through in their home. So just saying they don't have discipline doesn't mean they don't care about their education. Maybe being on campus and being around their friends who are super, super motivated was the nudge on their shoulder for them to, do better, was the nudge on their shoulder for them to submit their assignments on time. But now they have to come home in an environment that may not be conducive for studying, may not be conducive for them to concentrate. And even like in this time, there's so many people who have lost their jobs. So now in a situation of that student who's the mom has lost their job, the dad has lost their job, they could be like a straight A student on campus, but now they're home. There's no source of income. How are they going to pay for rent? How are they going to, how's the parent going to provide for their basic necessities,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know. You just can't say they're not disciplined because there's so many factors to take into consideration in these trying times. So they could be disciplined, but there's just so many factors that, I don't know. I feel like there's only so much that a student can take, But that's just my take, though.
Okay.
That's just my take.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that take in, Martha. And now that you brought on the topic of environment, I'd like to touch on that a little bit. So I think environment has affected the way students are, learning, how they're adjusting to this, because this is like unprecedented. No one has ever really gone through this unless unless you're living through the Spanish flu, which most of the people who did, they passed away. Because that was the last pandemic that really happened, that was global. But as to environment, some students, like, their Wi-Fi is not good. They share a room with
No, honestly.
people, their parents are loud and they don't understand that. Even though I'm in my room and I'm home, I'm studying, I'm doing classes, I'm taking tests. some people, like you said, Martha, they have lost their jobs. The parents have lost their jobs. They know people that have COVID-19 or in the hospital. And all these things are happening in the background. My
Right.
friend was even telling me a story where she has one of her classmates, she's a nurse, and the professor was like, why are you still working? You need to focus on class. If you're working, it's going to distract you. You should, stop working. And the student was like, how am I going to pay for everything? Like, I still have to work. And even though it's dangerous outside and, you can catch COVID-19, I still have to work. I still have to support myself. And I still have to land on top of this. So she was like really like upset that the professor couldn't, like bring empathy into the situation. So can you guys touch upon that environment? Like, what factors has altered your situation? Do you have friends that have been affected by this? And even from you, Dr. Janet, do you have professor friends that have been going through a tough time and it's just
Oh
like
yeah.
been damaging to them?
Oh yeah. I have been going through a tough time. I have two kids. My kids are out of school. And, it's been very, very stressful to say the least. The environment has, affected all. Listen, right now, even before I came on, my husband had to take the kids out because initially they were screaming in the background. So imagine you're doing a class before you're in the classroom environment. Who's yelling at me? Nobody. Or who's, running behind your back? No one. You're in the class. So with the change of environment, you're working from your home, you're working anything that can be disruptive. Um, and so I know professor friends who have kids and now their kids are home, so they can't do synchronous. They can't use their normal class schedule. So they have to record videos at night when their kids are asleep so that they can post it online the next day because they have children and a lot of us have to do schoolwork with our kids. And so during the day, you're doing schoolwork with your kids. That environment has changed. When you go to bed, you're recording a video or two just so your students can keep up with the material. So it's been very challenging. My friend told me she cries at night because she's
Oh,
so tired. And she has, when her kids go to bed, it's time for her to go to bed, but she's so tired, but she has to work. And so she has to, she's getting 4 hours of sleep. And I'm like, that's very tough. So the students, that's why we sometimes get frustrated when after you've gone through 4 hours, lost sleep to record a video where nobody wants to watch it and turning assignments. We don't understand.
yeah.
I get it. I've had students, I know a student who has a child and, they have to deal with, childcare as well. So I've had to, change things just to accommodate students with special needs. Some students don't have internet at home. And so they've had to go to family members' house to do work. So I do make, adjustment for deadlines. If you let me know what your situation is, we definitely make accommodations for that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yep.
And thank you for that, Dr. Janet. And Grace and Martha, do you have any add-ons to that?
I think, yeah, like everything that when you're asking the questions with like the Wi-Fi and things like those are environmental factors that have affected all of us during this pandemic. But I think like in addition to that, moreover, I think those environmental factors have affected our mental state, which is actually what's affecting our ability to perform well.
Yeah.
Because yeah, if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can't do your assignment. Yeah, like that's obvious. But then I think what you can't measure is, for example, if you can't pay rent and now you're financially stressed, and then you find out that, okay, you can't even work anymore, or you can't do this, or how you're going to eat. And then if you're about to graduate, or maybe you already had a job or whatever, Now it's like, okay, then what am I about to do with my future? What am I going to do next week? Now I have to think about what I'm going to do next month when I can't even predict what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like it gets you very anxious and worked up. And if you already have like mental health issues, or even if you've never had mental health issues, it's very possible for you to spiral into depression or anxiety or whatnot. And then now you're finding different coping mechanisms to try to figure this out. And then on top of that, now you got your professors saying you got to watch a 50-minute video on the class you never wanted to take anyways. No, I mean, no offense, but yeah. So I think it's the mental implications of what's happening environmentally is kind of what's affecting our performance in school.
Yeah.
And how have you personally been keeping yourself sane throughout this?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I don't think I have. No, ma'am. I'm trying. Like I'm literally like this. Today I'm here. I could be down here tomorrow. So we just going with the flow. I haven't been keeping myself sane.
Oh man.
For me, I think I think I have great parents, to be honest, because they do understand that I need privacy to like accomplish everything that like I need to do. So like when I'm in my room, I told my dad, like, can you not, because I'm trying to study and I have like virtual online classes, like I'm trying to study. Can you just like try to minimize how much like you need me? Like when I'm done, I will come and like help you with everything. Because I feel like he understands like the value of like education, and he understands that like I'm stressed as well. Because like it's a change of environment, change of scenery. But for me, planners, great. Planners. I have like a lot of planners where like I write what I need to do in the day, so like I'm not stressed, or I can even do things in advance so I'm not stressed later on. So I think that's one way. And also interacting with my peers. I have like their numbers. I would text them, hey, like how's this class going? Oh, hey, how's OChem? How's exercise quiz or whatever? So just like we keep each other accountable for what we have to do. So that's great.
Okay, thank you for that response. So we do have another question that came up in the comment section. I'm going to read it. Someone said awesome to your response, Daniel. So we have another question from Nana Domfe, and he's asking, do panelists agree that our difficulties to do in-depth studies via online is because we're used to browsing largely for comic relief instead of productive uses? Good question.
What?
Good question, Anna.
That's funny.
Anyone can jump in. What do you guys think?
I don't know. You guys tell me.
No.
What's the question again? Can you repeat it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you repeat I'm sorry.
Yeah. Do panelists agree that our difficulties to do in-depth studies via online is because we are used to browsing largely for comic relief instead of productive uses? Like we're used to like doing Instagram.
You're over there watching a funny YouTube video.
Yeah.
instead of watching my video. You're watching.
I feel like at this point, I don't know. I think at this point, like, well, for me, I can only speak for me, but I know for me, I just wanted to get things done. I was just over it. I was just over it, over these online classes, just over listening to lectures where you can't even raise your hand to ask questions. Because I'm the kind of person I like to be in the space with my professors and with my peers. I was just, I would say, like when I was on campus, I would definitely like dive into like my textbooks, like, okay, this text is saying this, and then look on Google or whatever on YouTube to get like an in-depth explanation of it. But now that I'm home, I'm like, okay, I just want to get it over with, get this assignment done, get this test done. So, yeah.
So you watch comic relief.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm laughing, but I watch. Sometimes you need a break.
Yeah.
You know, when you're stressed me, when I laugh about something, it calms me down. So when I look at online to see how many students have participated, and I'm about to lose my mind, and I'm about to, say, what is wrong with these kids for not turning in stuff? If I watch a funny video, it'll make me laugh it out. Like,
Yeah.
so for what it's important. Sometimes, it's stressful. These times are very stressful. But while you watch that, don't forget your priorities. That's all I'm asking. So funny videos you want, because at the end of the day, I laugh, but then I try to go back and finish what I need to do. But there's nothing wrong with having a good time. There's nothing wrong with that, especially with these stressful times. Why not?
Mm-hmm. And have your, just to piggyback on that question, on your response, you brought up priorities. Have your priorities changed since things have changed with COVID-19? Are you guys still on the same path you were before in terms of like the things you had outlined for you, like the things you wanted to complete as a student, as a professor in academia, and even after like school was over, like you had certain things you wanted to do? Has that changed, or is it like still the same?
For me, I don't think my priorities have changed. I think my number one priority as a student was to graduate, which I did, thank God, and do well this semester as well. I was like going for a 4.0, and I think I worked really, really hard, but we shall see next week. And I don't think my path after undergrad has changed at all. I'm planning on, going further. And I think I'm still working towards that. So I haven't really let this pandemic or this uncertainty change like where I want to go. Because I know that these times are going to be over. Like we're not always going to be under lockdown. We're not always going to be social distance. And it's like, what are you going to do? Like, what am I going to do after like social distancing is over if I cancel all the plans that I had for after undergrad? So I think they have not shifted at all. But even through the uncertainty, I'm still working towards where I want to go post graduation.
I think for me, I'm almost like devil's advocate in this one. I think my priorities have had to change. As much as I wanted to keep it consistent and keep everything the way I had planned, I think the circumstances has forced my priorities to change. Because, for example, if I plan on job searching, now there are no jobs in the market to search for. So it's like, okay, then I have to reprioritize, reorganize, reconvene, and think, okay, if this don't work out, then what else am I about to do? What else am I going to do? Or like even something as simple as an assignment. If I have 2 assignments due and now my internet is acting, this was literally me yesterday. My internet is acting funny, and I know what I can, if my internet wasn't acting funny, I can get both done in time. But now my internet is acting funny and I don't know which one to do. So now I'm just emailing both my professors and telling them I can't get my assignments done because my internet is acting funny. And so it's like, it's not like my priorities change and now I'm suddenly, it's like I change my priority to say I'm gonna not do my assignment, but it's like the circumstances cause me to have to kind of change.
Alter,
yeah. So yeah, I think I'm in a boat. I don't know if anyone else is, but for me, I'm in a boat where my priorities, I'm having to constantly modify and change it based on the lemons that are being thrown in my face.
Yeah.
I mean, we always say make lemonade out of the lemons, right?
Yeah, for me, my priorities did change, the semester, after the second half. For me, the lecture content became the top of my list, and lab was like shifted a little bit because with the lab experiments, now students can't do hands-on. The purpose of the lab is to actually physically do it. What's the point of watching a video of me, say, doing the lab or someone else doing the lab and getting the data and writing the report? So at that point, I had to change how I approached the labs. And first of all, the lecture content became priority because you can teach, you can go through it. And then with the labs, while it was important, I had to cut like 2 experiments because there was just no way that we could get through it. And so normally we would do 12 labs. We ended up doing 10 labs because of the changes in circumstance, and we lost like a week at the beginning when we switched. We had to, put lab on hold and figure out what we were doing with the lecture. And then after a while, we figured out what to do with the labs. And so there's been a lot of changes. How I do my finals have changed because it was, before you would give finals, paper finals, and students will take them.
Mhm.
And this finals, I'm having them, I've changed the nature of it just because I don't want students just Googling answers. So I've had to change how I set the questions, the nature of the way the questions have been. And so a lot of things have changed in the way we did things before doing it now because of the changes. It pretty much has, shuffled everything around, and
Mhm.
we kind of have to respond to it because you can't use the same style. You can't do things the same way. It's not face to face. It's not.
Yeah. Dr. Jen, we actually have a question for you.
Mhm.
So the question is, in this season, what is the difference you have noticed between students who are succeeding and those who are not?
Students who are succeeding are actually watching the videos.
Yeah.
Students who are struggling are waiting just to complete the assignment. So when you give a timed assignment, they freak out because they haven't really studied the material. So they have no idea how to do the problems because they're Googling. So if you time the assignment, they freak out because they don't have enough time to be Googling all the answers. But the students who are doing well are actually keeping up with the material, actually reading the lecture slides, actually, paying attention to all the deadlines. Um, Students who are struggling have, some of them have personal issues that we've discussed. Some of them have just lost motivation. It's just evident. We have A, B, C, D, and F students in every class. So I would say my A students have maintained. My B students, some of them have gone down. And I think that they were close to getting an A, but motivation is very low. And so that's what I've seen, lack of motivation. Personal circumstances have affected some students. And also just the whole mental stress. We've had students petition about how we should give grades this semester. They want us to give pass fail because of the mental stress that they're going through. And so instead of giving A, B, C, and D or F, students have options to request for a pass fail. So students who are doing well, I think they just are motivated and maybe they have great internet. The ones who are struggling would be lack of motivation and personal circumstance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that response. I have heard at different universities they have changed their grading structure a little bit to accommodate what's going on.
Yeah.
And we actually have a question from the audience concerning this, and it's directed to you again. But Grace and Martha, you can jump in where you see fit. So this is from Benjamin Addy. And
Uh,
Benjamin is asking, as a professor, are you considering grading differently concerning the barriers with regards to independent studies and other barriers?
am I considering grading differently?
Are you considering the barriers with regards to independent studies and other barriers?
Is it about grades or about independent studies?
So it looks like it's about grades. Are you considering grading differently based on the barriers that's around
Okay,
us?
okay. Um, so we've taken a collective decision. We had faculty meeting, and this is, across a lot of institutions, not just my institution. So students have written petition for us to consider giving pass fail. So if you get a D or better, it's a pass.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you get an F, not so for some schools, if you get a C minus or better, it's a pass. And
Okay.
then if you get below C minus, it's fail. So you have the option. We've agreed to this already. So first, we will assign your grades as is A, B, C, D, E, I mean F, and then you can request for your grade. If you get a D, you can request for your grade to be changed to a pass. So if you get an A, of course you want to keep the a B. I think most people will want to keep a B and a C. But if you get anything that you're not happy with and you feel like you didn't like your grade, we can change that. You can request for your grade to be changed. And it should be, if you don't know about this, you can ask your institution, you can ask your professor, you can ask the registrar. My school, we've already sent out the letter. Everybody knows, they're aware of this option, that if you feel like you did horribly because of life, you can change your grade to a pass fail and it won't hurt your GPA. But if you leave a D in there, it'll hurt your GPA. But if you change it to a pass, a P, it will not hurt your GPA. So if you feel bad about your grade, find out from your institution and maybe you can choose that option of a pass fail and it won't hurt your GPA. So if my students requested, yes, I will give it to them.
Okay.
We have the option.
Yeah, I think that structure does make sense. Is that happening at your universities as well, Grace and Martha?
Mhm.
It is.
There are there are some classes that are definitely not offering pass fail options, especially like science classes, because for graduate schools they want to look at like your actual letter grade as compared to like a pass or a fail. So I know the science department they're not offering that at all, but there are some other departments offering the pass fail option.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna transition us to a different question. So, as we all know, it's final season still in some areas of the world. Some students have finished, like you have, Martha, but some students are still in the
Yes.
midst of this. What tips do you guys have for those who are, who may be struggling to adjust with this new season of academics? What tips do you have for them to really excel in finals during the season?
I would say first, just do it. Like, if you know you have a final exam, you got an assignment due, whatever, like, just go ahead and do what you got to do. If you got to study, study. If you got to go over your notes, PowerPoint, maybe some lecture videos, maybe you really haven't watched them for like the past 4 weeks. Go back and watch it. You can change the speed setting. I do this all the time. You can change the speed setting of a video so it can play like 1.5 times faster so you can get through it faster. If you got to do that, like do what you got to do. Because at the end of the day, if I was just talking about this to somebody earlier, whether you're motivated or you're not motivated or whatever the situation is, if you fail a class, you're going to have to retake it again. And
Right.
if this was unprecedented. So there's no like rule in the book that says this is not going to happen again. So if you are failing your classes and then you retake it and then that same semester, COVID, whatever, 2021, whatever happens again, are you going to fail that class again too? Or like each time something happens, are you just going to fail? No, you
Yeah.
can't do that. So I think this is where you just put your foot down. You can be depressed for 23 hours, but that 1 hour time frame when you got to take the test, you just take the test and you do what you have to do. And when you're done, you can eat ice cream or something and make it so better. So I say just do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think students should kind of go back to the beginning as to why do I want this? Like, why do I want to pass this class? Do I want a good grade so I could get into like a good school, so I could get like a good job? So I think going back to the beginning and kind of reminding themselves why they chose to go to the institution and why they chose to study what they're studying right now, and also giving them, they have to give themselves a pep talk. As Grace said, that if you fail the class, you're going to retake it. You have to give yourself a pep talk during this time that, you know, it's okay. I'm going to struggle. I'm going to have to mentally and physically push myself like over 100% just for like a week. Because finals week is a week. Just 1 week won't kill me. Like, so just like pushing through the 1 week to like enjoy the aftermath of getting an excellent grade or doing super, super well on the final. So a pep talk, or even calling your trusted people that you know. It could be like your mom or your dad, or it could be like a mentor you have, and like tell them to hold you accountable for studying, hold you accountable for doing good in the class. So like pep talks, going back to the beginning and just speaking to trusted people. Sure.
Dr. Janet, do you have any tips for students?
Tips for students.
Watch the videos.
Yeah, watch the videos.
Oh, goodness. For students, do the assignment. Take them seriously. Even when you Google, guys, we know you're Googling. We know that you guys are Googling. If it is like an open-ended and you have to explain, could you believe students can copy and paste and not even change the content, the font size to even match anything?
Wow.
Like, copy and paste sometimes can paste on like a font size of like 6 or 8, really tiny. And guys, my advice is, if you're gonna do Googling or whatever else to answer the test, at least write it in your words. At least retype it. Listen, I am so particular about that. Don't waste your professor's time. They can see between the lines. Sometimes, when you pick an assignment, you don't spend too much time basically you can tell who's put in the work, and you can tell who just waited minutes ago.
Mhm.
So in my advice is, if you have deadline, at least give yourself a decent amount of time to complete it. That way you're not turning in, an underperformed assignment. We can see that, and that would, earn you lower grade. So since you're at home, take an hour or two and finish the assignment. I know that you don't do it 2 weeks and everything. We're all gonna wait till the deadline, but at least give yourself a decent deadline to finish the assignment. Otherwise, you're just going to turn in something that we can see
Mhm.
that you did in 1 minute. We can see that. And so please take it seriously and give yourself a decent deadline so that you can complete it decently, change the words, rewrite it, and complete it. And grade finals are usually like 25% of your grade, 30% of your grade. You've worked so hard. You should finish strong. So if you didn't take it seriously all this while, your finals, and put yourself together, pat yourself back, call a friend, stay on the phone, work with a friend. Do something because your grades is gonna hurt. It's the last straw. So please put in the work. That's all I can say.
Okay. One of our comments from Freddie, he agrees. He says, just do it. Remind yourself of the why to keep you going. Back to the beginning. Do the assignments. We know you're Googling. So one thing I would like to ask you guys, like in the midst of all this craziness, like where has God been for you guys? Has He given you a word in this season? Has He been directing you differently? As a student, as a professor, as any like identity you have within this season? Anyone can jump in.
I guess I'll go. Where has God been for me? I think in this season, just like a person or as a student, I feel like I really needed this time to. I think this time was a blessing for me, even though like it's a curse for some people. But for me personally, it's been like a blessing because I get to stay home and like reflect on my life. The fact that first of all, I have great health, by the grace of God. I'm not in the hospital. You know, there yeah, I'm not in the hospital. Like I have great health and it's caused me to grow in my faith and get closer to God more like through his word or just listening to like a lot of like gospel music, like finding different tunes to listen to and just like believing in his word that if God said he's going to be my protector in this time and he's going to be my provider, then I should believe in what he's telling me that, okay, he's going to be a protector. He's going to protect me from this COVID-19 virus going around and that has caused me not to live in fear. I should be cautious, but it's not making me fearful because I feel like I have a God who can do all things, and even like protection is not something that's too hard for him. But as a student, I feel like God has always been the center because I feel like God would want me to do well. He wouldn't want me to like slack on like my classes, not do well, have to retake a class. I feel like personally, I don't think that's what God wants for me, but that's just how I've seen it. God wants me to do well. He wants me to do everything for his glory. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it my best. So, yeah.
For me, so where has God been? I would say when school was still in session, when life was normal and great as we knew it, I was always like very in tune. I'm gonna explain the quotation marks, but like I was always in tune with God. I went to church twice a week, did all that stuff. I felt very connected to God. God was speaking to me. I was preaching and singing, doing this, that, and the other. Like everything was great. But then when COVID happened and all the churches moved online, personally, I don't I just don't like watching video, like online videos. I don't like it. So like the first Sunday that this happened, I turned my TV on, turned my speaker, like it was really booming. And then I literally sat on my bed trying to be in church. And I was like, wow, like this, this is not for me. So like, I kid you not, I don't think I've been to an online church service since that happened. It's been like 2 months. So one could say that, that maybe God has been MIA or I've been MIA, whatever. But what I'm finding is that God has always been here and is still here. And he's always been like, it's like now I'm kind of figuring out how I relate to God, I guess, or how God relates to me. And it was never yes, it is, but like it wasn't always all about like the church and me actively participating in routines. But now I find that okay, now when I journal, I'm writing something. It's like, oh, this is cool. Or like a random April when everything is shut down, boom, God threw a miracle in my way. And I'm like, well, but if God wasn't here, like, why would he do a miracle for me? So it's like, I think God is here. And for me, I'm now figuring out exactly how I relate to God. Take away traditions, take away culture, take away routines. Like, if it was just me, then where is God with me? So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Thank you. Dr. Janet?
Yeah, for me, I've done a lot of reflection throughout this time, and like my one question I've been answering is what really matters, What is so important in life? Sometimes we go, and you know, we don't take time to really understand what really matters. So this time I've been doing a lot of reflection and trying to see God. I feel like God is telling me and teaching me what is important in life. That after this whole COVID is over, there's a lot that we can live without that we probably thought we so I am learning a different way of enjoying life where it doesn't involve get up and go. I'm so used to go, go, go. I'm so used to do, do, do. And now it's like everything has stopped. So what matters? The word of God hasn't gone anywhere. So talking to God hasn't gone anywhere. You don't need to go anywhere to talk to God. You can talk to Him right in your house. So that's important. Your family, my husband has not gone anywhere. My children have not gone anywhere. I see those people every day. I talk to God every day. And then I have my family who are on the phone talking all the time, trying to see if everybody's okay. And and I've been good with that. I don't need to be out there running around doing the most. And so for me, it's just like, wow, I'm just learning what really matters. And I feel like God's really touching me and like letting me know that life is simple. Eat some food, say a prayer, get your work done, enjoy your family and friends. Everything else, I could have had a, big mansion, big cars. You can't even drive these cars anymore. I could have five cars. Cars are about
Yes.
not 10. I always stay in one. So for me, it's really I'm understanding what really matters in life, and I feel like God is teaching me something in this time, and I'm very appreciative of it. And I feel like after this experience, I praise God get the lessons that I'm learning so that I can actually use them and live a very simple life. Very, very simple. Eat some food, watch some TV, do your work. That's it.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, thank you guys so much for your comments, the advice, the wisdom that you have poured into this conversation. On behalf of Panta Connect, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy Saturday to just join in and, just talk. We all appreciate it. hmm So this concludes the end of our program. For those who are watching, please share, repost, tell your friends to watch, and let us learn from one another during this season. Thank you. Back to you, Stanley.